But of course, you're never going to hear most of these things from Ted Koppel or Dan Rather or Barbara Walters. Well, they have one other person who will attest to what this is really all about, Admiral Chester Ward. Admiral Ward is quoted in Barry Goldwater's excellent book. Actually, we have the quotation in here, or you can get it from Kissinger on the couch, which Chester Ward wrote with Phyllis Schlafly. And Admiral Ward, 16 years in the Council on Foreign Relations, finally came out and said, look, he said, this is what it's all about. There is a small clique within this organization that is totally dedicated to the destruction of national sovereignty, and they're totally dedicated to world government. And of course, he felt this was terrible. He was a man, a member of the military, a Judge Advocate General of the Navy, who really believed in America's independent state. He realized the Council on Foreign Relations was being used to program people to support this internationalist dream for the Parliament of Man, the federation of the world. So how then does this all tie together? Well, Monsieur Perot, as he was looking at all of the suspects, realized that in the dead man's body there were 12 stab wounds, and there were 12 suspects, every one of whom had a motive to kill the American. And he said, there are too many clues. 12 stab wounds, 12 people, all with a motive. Well, as we look at what's going on in the world today, how do we begin to put this together? And so let's just take what Professor Quigley has told us about the origins of the Council on Foreign Relations, and let's go back to Cecil John Rhodes. Who was he really? What motivated Cecil John Rhodes? And what most people do not understand is Cecil Rhodes had entered the Masonic Lodge. He had sworn the oaths of fidelity to the light. Now, how many of you here, well, I won't ask that because probably most of you know what the light is in Masonry, but if you go into the Blue Lodge of Masonry, the first thing you do is they blindfold you, they put a noose around your neck, they bare your chest here, and then they roll up your pant leg, and then they march you up before the worshipful master and they say, what do you most want? And you're told you're supposed to say the light. So you say the light. And then you go into the second level of the lodge and they say, what do you most want? And you're supposed to say more light. And then the third level of the lodge, why you want even more light. But you never know what the light is. Nobody ever tells you. In fact, you're told as you go up through the levels of the lodge that they're going to tell you the secret. Trouble is that they never tell you the secret. You may catch a glimpse of this as you read the esoteric writings of Masonry, but most people within the Masonic Lodge are intentionally deceived. And if you read Morals and Dogma, written by Albert Pike, he will tell you we intentionally deceive people coming into the lodge. Why? Because we don't want them to know. Most of them are not worthy to know the real secret. If you read Manly Hall, now Albert Pike died in 1891. During the 20th century, the leading Masonic philosopher is a man named Manly P. Hall. In fact, he had his headquarters right down here in the Los Angeles area. I don't know how many of you know of it, but Manly P. Hall had written extensively on Masonry before he ever joined the lodge. Became a 33rd degree Mason, one of the leading Masonic philosophers. And he said, Masonry is a fraternity within a fraternity. Most Masons are wonderful people. They have a good time. They do good things. But there is an inner fraternity dedicated to the mystery, to the secrets. And of course, Manly Hall wrote extensively on what those secrets were. And of course, unless you understand those secrets, you can't understand what energized Cecil John Rhodes, or why the symbol is on the back of the American dollar bill. What does that symbol really stand for? What does it really mean? And why is nobody concerned that that symbol is on the back of the dollar bill? Well, first of all, you can read what the occultists will tell you. They will tell you that the pyramid has to do with pagan rites. And in pagan rites for the last 5,000 to 6,000 years, the pyramid has been the symbol. It's got 13 steps on it. It has nothing to do with 13 colonies. 13 is a secret occult number that gives tremendous power. The term above, which I can't pronounce, but It has to do with he favors our venture, the novus ordo seclorum, has to do with a new social order, the new order of the ages. 1776, they will tell you, has to do with the date when America was created. And the all-seeing eye above is the eye of the God, of the sun, the eye of light. Well, Cecil Rhodes, after going and entering the Masonic Lodge and hearing the lecture by John Ruskin, suddenly became consumed with this idea that it was his destiny to create a one-world government. Now, we knew he'd never live to see it come to pass, but he believed that he would form the foundation for this one-world government. And he began then to recruit men to his cause. You remember there were three men initially. There was William Stead, there was Lord Esher, his name was Brett, and there was Lord Melbourne. Stead was an occultist. He was a member of the Theosophical Organization. He was deeply involved in spiritualism. Why was he interested in getting into an organization with Cecil Rhodes? Because occultists, and you read occult writings, they will all tell you we're moving towards a new age, we're moving towards a new one-world government, we're moving towards a new spirituality. If you read the material which we have, read Carol Quigley's book, read the pages from White's book, actually taken from Stead's diary, you'll find out that the second level of the secret society was a man named Lord Balfour, Arthur Balfour. And Arthur Balfour had formed the Society for Psychical Research. And Professor Quigley tells us in his book, The Anglo-American Establishment, that the men who joined with Milner after Cecil Rhodes' death primarily came from the Society for Psychical Research. They were all into the occult. And this is the common denominator behind everything that's going on. If you go into the Council on Foreign Relations today, you'll be amazed to find how many of these men are into the Lucis Trust, are into Theosophy, are into Masonry, and the underlying focus of everything that's going on today is occultism working within every one of these organizations. Now, most people think communism is an atheistic form of philosophy. In other words, Karl Marx was an atheist. He talked about religion being the opiate of the masses. And then most people are usually incredibly naive. Karl Marx was a Satanist. And if you haven't read the book, Marx and Satan by Reverend Warren Brand, who spent 14 years in a communist prison, you have to, and we carry that through our ministry. And Marx and Proudhon and Bakunin, who were the three leading socialists at that time, were all into Satanism, and they embraced socialism as a means of destroying Christian civilization, Western civilization. That's what it was really all about. Mikhail Gorbachev today is a New Ager. You go to his State of the Union, State of the World forums in San Francisco or down in Mexico, and the whole theme is occultism. And what does Mikhail Gorbachev talk about? What we need is a one world order, a new world order, and a new world spirituality. At the recent conference that was held in Rio de Janeiro, it was called the Earth Summit Plus 5, or whatever the original meeting was there in 1992. They had a new one earlier this year in 1997. And they're stressing new spirituality. What are they talking about? They're talking about doing away with the Judeo-Christian ethic and replacing it with a new world religion. If you get into the background of Masonry and you begin studying what the Masonic philosophers will tell you about the light, and if you read Albert Pike, and he actually goes into some detail talking about, and here I think on page 321, he says, Lucifer, the light bearer. Strange the mysterious name to give to the spirit of darkness. Lucifer, the son of the morning. Is it he who bears the light? Doubt it not. Lucifer is the god of Masonry. And if you doubt that, we can give you all sorts of references, but probably Manly Hall is the best source of that. And his quotation is really very, very clear. And he basically talks about the strength of a man was not given to be used destructively, but that he might build a temple worthy to be the dwelling place of the great architect of the universe. When the Mason learns that the key is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he shall have understood the mystery of the craft and the seething energies of Lucifer in his hands. And that comes from his book, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. It's all Luciferian. That's the driving force behind Masonry and Theosophy and the Lucis Trust, behind communism, behind the Council on Foreign Relations. Behind all of this is Luciferianism.